all happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get a bit of a rundown on what this plant protein is all about, because we've sent out the first bit of the trials for everyone
Mhm.
to that's involved in it to give us a bit of feedback on what's going on with that actual, product tasting and whatnot, so we can adjust ours. But we've got some special plant material that you're chucking in with this one, aren't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. No, well, so I did get a bit excited with it because there was a lot of opportunity. Because with the proteins, as we've been talking over the last month, explaining the differences between the proteins, but a lot of the innovation for protein is still just recycling old stuff from whey, which is not relevant to the collagen and now with the plant. Um,
Hmm.
but I've got some mates in labs that kind of let me play every once in a while. So like we've managed to go in and create some really really cool things. So when we went and had a look at all the other plant products, and there was a massive need to support gut health with the plant products, and some companies were just throwing in some probiotics, which is cool, but those
Hmm.
probiotics are just they have a very transient effect, which means when you put probiotics into a plant protein that sits on the shelf and not in the fridge and that sort of stuff, they got to put mega doses of these probiotics in it because a lot of them just die off. But
Hmm.
then they only use one or two strains, and those strains may not be specific for plants. So what you got to realize is we have like 500 to 1,000 different species of microbes in our guts, and we need a specific type of microbes to actually digest plants. And it's different to the ones that are specifically for dairy, because the
Yeah.
ones from dairy, as you can imagine, breast milk and all those fermented dairy products, yogurts and that sort of stuff, just require a different kind of catalyst and a
Hmm.
different type of bug to ferment plant material and to do it properly.
Yeah.
And also plants have got lots of other stuff in them. And also they're deficient in certain things. So where plants have got the lower level of branch chains, lower levels of certain amino acids, we need a different microbiome to support those. And they also have some anti-nutrients like phytase and that sort of stuff that can actually inhibit the absorption of nutrients. So a very specific blend of microbes would be required to make a substrate specific product, meaning when we switch from whey and collagen to plant, we need to respect that material and do the best thing we can for it. So, so what I did, man, we went into the lab. Anyway, that's the boring bit. So we go into the lab and we start fermenting all this stuff and trying to work out the right conditions to actually digest these foods. And then what we're capable of doing is getting a lot of those live bugs that we need to be seeding inside of us, which are called probiotics, the live bugs, okay, are the
Hmm.
probiotics. They feed on sugars, which are called prebiotics, and they're often in the fiber and that sort of stuff. So, what we discovered for plant, surprisingly, some of the best prebiotics for plants were plant based, like sugars. Yeah. So, as opposed to lactose or something, it's
Yeah.
starting to make sense. So, the different foods we want to digest just require different bugs. And when we do it in the lab and we set it up, we can eventually select the specific bugs we need to do the best digestion. And then what was really cool about it is they also make postbiotic compounds. So what I'm saying is when they digest the plant material, they make enzymes, they make acids, they make all of these compounds that they need to actually digest the plant material. So
Hmm.
this is what we've done. We've managed to actually get, and the ideal prebiotic we found was aloe vera, which is really cool because aloe vera has got an amazing long history of food use for gut health.
I've used it a
But
lot for sunburn.
yeah, yeah, well, so many things. So that sunburn component, okay, so the sunburn component is often an antioxidant, like a glucosamine and stuff. It's a soothing, calming, healing, anti-inflammatory compound that soothes membranes, which is why it helps with sunburn. Aloe
Yeah.
vera also has iridoid glycosides in it, which are these compounds that cause a laxative effect. They irritate your guts, and that's in the slime around the stuff. So I want to use that as such. But if we can get the prebiotic glucosamine sugars out of the inside of the aloe vera, it created the perfect little starting material to get the probiotic strains cranking and then feeding on the plant protein and making lots of postbiotic compounds. So what would normally happen in the past, before we got a lot smarter, is they would go through and say, let's just throw in the probiotics that we use to break down milk because that's what's most stable or most studied or something, but it's just not the most relevant. So what we've done is we've actually gone and found specific strains. Bifidobacterium lactis is one of them, which is also known Bifidobacteria infantis, which is cool because it helps to set up the microbiome, the intestinal environment to move from breast milk onto plant material. So you can imagine, we're all born on the boob, we're all born on the breast, and then at some stage we have to move onto whole foods, and then the plants are some of the hardest whole foods for us to break down, and we need our gut changes to be able to do that. And so if our gut doesn't change, then we have intolerance to that new food. And so by creating a combination of probiotics, which is some of the live bugs, but not too many. You don't want to overdose the live bugs because they're live and they mainly work by the immune system going, what are you doing here, idiot? I'm going to kill you. And so the live bugs challenge the immune system and it kills them. The other thing the live bugs do is they feed on their way through because they don't normally colonize and live inside you. They feed on the way through. And as they feed on the way through, they make postbiotic compounds. So what we've done is we've recreated that process in a lab where we could be very specific with what material we want them to be feeding on. And so what we managed to do then is create a combination of live organisms as well as all the dead bugs that are needed as part of that fermentation. Okay, so we have live bugs, which are called probiotics. We have a whole heap of dead bugs as well. They're non-viable, inactivated probiotic cells, which are dead bugs. But because they're still active, they get nicknamed as zombie probiotics or ghost probiotics because they're dead but active, which is kind of cool.
So what's the benefit of the dead ones then?
Oh, amazing. So the dead ones themselves challenge the immune system the same as the live ones. The dead ones actually are better at adhering or sticking to the mucous membrane because they're not live and trying to do live things. They kind of just stick. They just stick to the sides. But then they act like live ones because the body doesn't know if they're live or dead. It still treats them like a bug. So they still coat the membranes. And when they coat the membranes of your intestinal tract, they basically are dead. But they still work as competitive exclusion to stop other bugs from adhering and infecting your body or colonizing or overgrowing. But they also work like compost for your gut wall. So if you can imagine these dead bugs come through, all of the bugs, all the compounds that your microbiome needs to survive is found in the dead bugs. So it's like the perfect food it's like a prebiotic in itself. It becomes a food for the colonized bugs, and it provides nutrients and cell walls and all sorts of amazing stuff comes out of these bugs, like different types of fatty acids, different types of antioxidant compounds, all sorts of other amazing stuff, including enzymes and everything as well. But they also challenge the immune system. But it's not so when you have a look at a postbiotic matrix, or when you have a look at the slurry stuff that's left over after fermentation, what we have is some live bugs, but not many, because the whole process of fermentation is it builds up acids and it builds up antibacterial compounds that kill off most of the bugs. But those bugs that were in there that rotted and fermented that food are now still there, but as dead bugs. And we're just starting to realize how powerful those dead bugs are. Do you know how they discovered? I'm not sure if I said it on this thing, but they tried to make crapsules. Did I tell you the story there? So they used to do the fecal transfer and stick it up the butt, like an enema, and transfer a healthy person's poo to a sick person's poo up their butt. But that wasn't like commercially viable or scalable. So then they decided to do the pills down. But they had the crapsules. So they had to sterilize the crapsules so you weren't making people sick by eating
I was reading some studies, and there were some amazing results with that fecal transplants.
Well, the same. Now, this is what they've discovered, that they can achieve similar results by sterilizing it. And so they're just proving that you can kill the bugs, and it works almost the same. And then you know what it did? It fully freaked them out because they realized we've had 10, 20 years worth of studying probiotics with the assumption that the effects were coming from the live bugs in the capsule and the dead bugs were to be ignored. And never have we ever seen a trial. It's not possible. I don't think it's never been done where we have ever seen a trial where you're supplemented with live bugs only. So every probiotic data we ever had, part of the effects are from the live and part of them are from the dead. And now that they're reproducing 80% of those or most of those effects with dead bugs, they're still now going back going, hang on, did the live ones ever do anything? Or what do the live ones do that the dead ones don't? Because if they can recreate all the studies on the live bugs with the dead ones, then it may have been the dead component of the live bugs doing it anyway, or those live bugs may have been working by getting killed as they hit that pit of acid or get the big bile or the immune system or competitive bugs releasing compounds because they still pick it up as an immune challenge. So what we've managed to do for this product, like this is the sort of background that's gone into this. And then what we've managed to do is, because these lab guys, man, that's all they do. These microbiologists, they're just obsessed with this stuff and they know it on a level you can't possibly comprehend. So you go in there as someone like me that hasn't studied as a full microbiologist, but I've got a lot of ideas, a lot more questions than I have answers mainly. So we can go into these places and just start experimenting, drop the ego, just go in and go, man, let's just play. Let's have a look and see what we can discover. And in doing so, we managed to create a blend of probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, and zombie bugs or para probiotics into a blend that is specific for our plant protein. Now, this was my challenge. This is where I started to freak out a little bit, which is why I went and collected all my favorite tasting plant proteins off the market, and we sent them out to some people on the X trials. So we managed to find 4 or 5 different brands. I can't remember how many now. But anyway, we've got a heap of really cool ones that we really like. These are our favorite ones that we've sent out to everyone. Because, like I said, the stuff that I want to add to my plant protein is fermented aloe vera juice with microbes and dead bugs and like acidy kind of things. And technically just kind of thinking outside the box that maybe a aloe vera kombucha or something might taste bad, or like a sauerkraut made out of aloe vera pulp or something. It's just imagining it's not going to be that tasty. So what my goal is, I have tried it and I think it tastes great. Okay. Not that stuff by itself, it's bloody horrible. But when we put it in the plant protein, it actually works really well. I can't actually taste it. I don't think it changed any flavor profiles. So what our plan is we were really nervous that it was going to taste bad, partly because I made it, and most things that I make taste really bad. But so what we did is we think it tastes good. I think it tastes good, but I don't trust my taste at all. James thinks it tastes good too, but we're both very biased. We don't really know.
Yeah, that bias on your own stuff,
well, bias on our own stuff, but also we're not normal either, like in the sense that, we eat a lot of herbs and spices and tend to like add a lot of weird stuff to smoothies and things. So flavor profiles for us that are kind of like, and tastes like it's good for you sort of thing.
Yeah.
Some people might go taste terrible and I just won't buy that. So what we've done is we've got you the taste test, the yummy ones, and then we're sending out our yummy one as well for you to taste and just see if it's also cool, because I reckon it's great. Like it tastes really good, man.
Well, how good science like that, right? So all of those findings over time, and just thinking about that, like how much time, effort, money, and technology would have gone into all of those probiotics that we see on the market with billions and billions of live bacteria,
But what about the carbon footprint? Let's think about the environment as well. So this is what the sort of stuff that starts to bug me. 500 BC, I think it was, some stupid 500 BC. when Hippocrates went through and said, "Oh yeah, that's a good." I didn't even pick up on my own joke. 500 BC is when Hippocrates said there's something about these fermented foods sitting on the bench that are good for our guts. 2,500 years later, we had the Fermented Food Association go through and say, "Oh, there's something special about these foods sitting on our bench that are good for our guts. You know, maybe it's these postbiotic compounds." Blah blah blah. Man, the carbon footprint of just citing, because I get so angry about this too, because it was in the year 2000 for a company that was just about to launch a probiotic. This is before one of the major probiotics on the market. You know, I don't want to mention brands and that sort of stuff. Before this thing launched, I was talking to the scientists and they're telling me about these live organisms. This is a relatively new concept at the time for these products. And I'm sitting there asking about the dead ones. I said, but how do you keep them alive? How many dead? And like they were telling me, oh, for us to have 25 billion live ones, we put in 100 billion. So I said, you got 75 billion dead ones. And they said, well, at expiry, we got 100 billion live ones at the start. And I said, well, how many live, how many dead? How do you know what's doing what? And they're just like, no, it's the live. They do this, this, and this. So I was sitting there going, but what if it's the dead? I said, that's a heaps better idea. In your product, you've got all of these refrigerated storage. We've got refrigerated trucks going around. We've got these specialty conditions where we're having to keep these things cold, all for the purpose of keeping these bugs dormant long enough for you to put them into this hot pit of acid in your stomach. It kills most of them anyway. And then they still got to get 25 billion per serve so you can get a couple of billion down to the colon. And for that, they put 100 billion in. And then all of a sudden, you've got all that from one strain. We want diversity, not like bombarding your gut with one bug that seems to be the most stable in the real world outside of an intestine. Like, it does not make sense. And it was so adamant it was alive. Well, but they knew there was that element of doubt that it could have been the dead. And I was sitting there saying, but the dead bugs, it could be those. And if I'm right, my idea is shits all over your idea, because you don't need the refrigeration, you don't need the storage, you don't need to overload things, you don't need to disturb someone's gut contents just to be able to get it. And you know what was going to happen. At that time, I'm positive it was actually like, I think it was something like 25 million strains, to be honest. I think we went from millions to like billions to be now up to people using like equivalent to 100 billion CFU colony forming units per dose. It's just phenomenal. These things have got so much worse, and it's that numbers game that people do. I want ours is cheaper and stronger.
Yeah, you know? More that sort of vibe as well.
Yeah, but the old days, and one of my favorite products. Actually, I'm happy to say this one. Naturopath, old school naturopaths will know this one, because I think it was taken off the market because they said it's bullshit. It can't possibly work. It's not refrigerated. There's a company called Orthoplex. One of my favorite guys, Henry Osiki, for the naturopath industry. Amazing guy. He created a brand, Orthoplex, a really good brand. Orthoplex had a product called acidophilus fiber powder, but it was basically fiber and that you'd sit in your bench, and it was full of probiotic strains, but all dead ones and not refrigerated, just sitting there. And it was a brilliant product. It worked so well. But if you have a look at the formulation compared to what they tell us now is like the bee's knees in the industry, it wouldn't even touch the sides. And I think it got discontinued or maybe even banned because of they didn't have the refrigeration for the live bugs. But in hindsight, it was well at the time, but they just didn't have the data they needed. And that was around the year 2000s. That was around then. And just before all the big refrigerated probiotic stuff come out, and then all the other products that we used to sell and work from, the fermented stuff, got all thrown out. And now here we are 20-something years later doing a full circle. Well, sorry, 2,500 years later doing a full circle. So talk about, it's crazy. Well, I really bugs me that, man, because people need to consider the environment with their decisions. Like, you can't just do that, like make a decision that this one is there because you've got a competitive edge, even though it's going to destroy the place,
Well, that's just where it all comes back to. The more and more that, we learn, the more and more that we realize we didn't know. And that's just science as it is. And we're so early with all this nutritional science, understanding the human body and how it functions with our environment, that is changing every single day, every single week as it goes anyway. So like, even the stuff we're talking about here today will change again in another decade or two. Like it could be completely different again. There could be some whole other different type of bug that we didn't even know about that was having some sort of effect.
No, and I know, and the funny thing is, as much as I'm like carry on, like it's all about the science and the people, there are like innovations that I've been keeping secret. I mean, there are projects that I'm working on that I won't publish until it suits me, so it's also one of those things, we get caught up. It just bugs me that health is a business. To be honest, I just wish that the society would just basically make all this stuff free and available, and like teachers and healers and that sort of stuff. Teachers, healers, and mums should be the most important part of society. And then,
Absolutely.
the government should be supplying that sort of stuff. What's that?
Best at the health keepers, I feel, because they're the one raising the kids, keeping the husbands in line.
It's pretty much the same thing. Hey, when I said mums, teachers, and healers, they're pretty much the same. Yeah, and so that's the most important part of society. So, so I think it's good to move forward and do progress, but it's good to also make sure that we can get this stuff out to market. And a lot of our greatest innovations and inventions are sitting in filing cabinets, where there was science that didn't suit a commercial endpoint, or new discoveries that were made that didn't suit a particular narrative, and that we just can't talk about that. And then science gets compromised because of it. So that does bug me, but I'm really excited about this new era, because it's it's like almost like technology's caught up to a certain degree with its ability to explain how nature is so much better. It's like suddenly we can identify some of these bugs, we can see some of these things, but we even saw in this recent pandemic, how even at the end of all that, they disclosed, we still can't actually just grab this bug and show it to you. Like we just don't have that ability. Like we don't have those tools to do those things, So as we get better with our tools, we'll get better at identifying the mechanism of action. But there is absolutely no doubt in the healing power of natural medicine. And over all those years and all the data we've collected, we know the shit works. It's just trying to work out how it works so that way we can use it better. But in the meantime, it's like, if we need to know that, otherwise just accept the fact that shit works. And keep working on following the laws of nature,
And then figure out why later on. All that matters right now is the results for people, and people taking control of their health for themselves. So that's what the X Trials is all about, is giving out that information, right? And then as you said, putting together these trials so that we can be the right market fit for these actual products as well. So something else I want to get into with this one. So like, what have we got coming up with the X Trials? With a few things down the track. Can you let us in on any secrets there? And then another question as well, with this plant protein product, is there any like recommended nutritional intake to go alongside this, or is it too early to tell?
Well, no, it's a good question, but it's a very basic answer. On the back of all proteins, it says this is not your sole source of nutrition. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, the whole point of it is people I don't like the idea of thinking that it's a meal replacement or something like that, because it can never replace a plate full of, vibrant, fresh, local produce sort of thing. So basically, the way people use proteins is when we're trying to maintain a certain physique, or when we're trying to lose a bit of weight or something like that, you get it's just kind of like a cheat. It's like a cheat code protein, because we cut the calories from the fat and the sugars to a certain degree. Mainly we'll cut the carbs out, because we want a healthy diet's usually sitting about 30% good fats. So then we'll cut the carbs a little bit to get rid of some of those calories, because they're just fuel. So the protein can be used for structural stuff. The protein can be used for the brain, as can a lot of the fats and that sort of stuff. So we need our diet to be protein adequate, fat adequate. But the sugar is the thing that we can play around a little bit with. But what they've found is, for us to maintain our body mass, we need a certain amount of protein to maintain our muscle mass. But they have also discovered in certain studies that if you actually cheated at all, you can jack up your protein, and it doesn't seem to stop the fat loss campaign, or it doesn't seem to contribute as much to changing the microbiome back as it would if you used the carbs or the fat. So basically the protein's a little bit of a cheat code. So if you're going to have a snack, if you want any extra without really struggling and damaging your macros and your diet campaign, protein works really well for that. We can go from like, I think 0.8 grams per kilo body weight as a bare minimum up to like 3.2 grams per kilo body weight if you don't have some kidney disease. And you're capable of doing that sort of stuff without it actually halting fat loss or screwing around with your metabolism. So when we're starving, when you go in starvation mode and that sort of stuff, often our thyroid and everything will slow down. Just by snacking on the protein, it means you can actually keep that metabolism cranking without it screwing around on the whole campaign. Plus protein, man, like I said, structure. So we need it to build our muscle, but we also need it for liver pathways, detoxification, uses all the amino acids. Our brain chemistry is all based on amino acids. We have all of these different peptides running through our body, like glutathiones and creatines and whatever. They're all basically needing those amino acids to do that. So protein's got a lot of other jobs it can do where it won't just basically contribute to fuel if our body is a bit deficient in some of those amino acids, so we get our meal without screwing around with our stuff. And it's not that protein is deficient in anyone's diet, really.
Yeah.
If you have a look at someone that eats meat, meat's about a quarter protein. So meaning, a 200 gram piece of steak will give you about 50 grams of protein. But you have a look at plant is about 1/5 protein, So a 200 gram serve of lentils or something will give you like the 40 grams of protein. So it's just often the difference between an animal-based protein and a plant one is the difference between a flat scoop and a heap scoop. If you want to get the same amount of protein, it doesn't matter that much there. But I love the fact that protein is a great vehicle as well for us to add a lot of things. So when we can flavor up our smoothies and things, and all of a sudden we can just start going ape shit, adding in all of our other bits and pieces. Yeah. So that's why I also don't like meal replacements, because I like people to use the protein as their basis to create their own, superfoods. And that's why. And recipes and that. You throw your protein into the balls and you throw them into the bars, and you can do all of that sort of stuff. I think it's wicked. I even throw it into my kids' peanut butter and stuff like that, because they just I fortify as many foods as I can with other little bits and pieces, so I don't have to say don't eat that, and say eat it. It's good for you. It's good for you. And then they go, I don't want to eat it now.
Any of the bad stuff, I'll have that, but none of the goodies.
Yeah. So I go, give us your junk food. I'm going to fortify it with vitamins or something. And they go, no, don't make it healthy. We don't want it then.
Well, that could be a bit of a segue into possibly some of the stuff that we're coming up, right? So do you want to shed some light on that?
Oh, well, we've got a fair few things coming up. I'm not sure if I can yet. Because I've got a fair few people that want to run their products through these trials now. There's a lot of people out there that want to actually get the feedback from our group, because a lot of the feedback that people get from these bullshit other groups, I say it that way because it drives me crazy, because people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in doing trials. And then what they do is they give it to a company that puts an ad in the Courier Mail or something, and gets like just unemployed people or lazy people and pensioner people or people that I've got nothing else to do, and that were prepared to turn up to a place and earn $20 or something to drink something, and these people don't care. They're not customers. They're not out buying it. They're not the actual people that buy these products, but they feel the need to give all these big bullshit feedback, It's the same person. You walk down the street and say, hey, man, would you like to try this plant protein? I'm really proud of it. And something I'm going to sell in the shops. And they go, bugger off. Why would I do that? And you go, I'll give you $20. And they go, oh, okay, $bucks, and drink your protein, and then tell you to bugger off. It tastes like crap. It tastes like chalk and protein. It's like irrelevant. And then this data comes out like saying that was a stupid idea. Where if you actually ask the people that are looking for the things, hey, I want your feedback. This is something I know you like. I just want to make it better for you, and I'd like to know what you think about it. So Because so now what we've got a lot of these people in the natural medicine world in particular, you know, like the really healthy stuff. There's a particular market out there that really wants that yummy, healthy food. They're not looking for things hitting that bliss point with the fructose and palm oils and stuff like that to hit that brain chemistry that makes them addicted. You know, we've got people here that want to have stuff that makes them feel good. And that's a totally different type of people that you wouldn't find by putting a stupid ad out and trying to just recruit anyone that's bored, you know, with nothing to do. Because they're probably bored with nothing to do. They probably don't have any money to buy supplements anyway, and they're not the sort of people that are doing it. So why would you ask them if they would buy it? They'd say no. Like,
I've seen that in so many studies that like over the year, and that was my favorite subject, or one of biochemistry was probably my favorite. But then the next one was critical inquiry, and that was really looking at studies and how they were conducted, who they were funded by, and the actual market that it was tested on. And it's wild when you're like looking at these published papers and you're like, okay, so we've got a sports performance supplement that has been, you know, tested on general pop to, you know, provide this sports performance supplement to athletes. So it's
it's worse. It's actually worse because they'll perceive that someone that's into sport might be biased. And a positive bias. We can't have a positive bias. And so they don't want to know the opinions of the people that want to buy these things. They want to know the opinions of the general unbiased, random sample of population. But they're not the actual market. And the funny thing is the data that will come out of our trials may be perceived by the scientific community to be not scientifically relevant because we're selecting biased people. It's biased. But that's also science. We just got to acknowledge what we're doing. But I believe we're going to get much better data out of the people that want to be involved compared to getting data out of general population that don't actually care, because you'll end up with the same statistics. 20% of the population buys plant protein, for example. You go and ask everyone out there, you go get 100 people, 20 of them go, yeah, I actually would buy this. And you go, oh, surprise, surprise. We already done all those studies to find 20% of you would. Now, what I want to know, out of you people that would buy plant protein, which plant protein would you buy? What do you want to see in your plant protein? What don't you want to see? What are your problems? What do you look for on a label that will make you not buy it? Or what do you feel in your body that makes you think this is not right for me? Like, that's the information that is useful and information for someone that actually wants to target that particular part of the market, that specific research that is targeted directly getting the information out of the experts. Because why would you ask non-experts for their opinion? And when I say experts, these people are expert eaters of these particular foods. You know, they have proper feedback. They have recipes, they have ideas, they have things that they've wanted to see in the marketplace, and no one's ever asked them. You know, and so
that just comes all the way back to that observational versus objective data, and I think that could be pretty important for the listeners, you know, to explain that in a little bit more depth, because that's what over the years that you struggle with being in clinic and whatnot. So you've got all of this objective data, or like me as a strength coach and whatnot, like you could see this stuff happening there. But then when you look at the observational studies, it's saying otherwise. So you get like this confusion. You're like, how does this all come together? But I think that could be important for the listeners if you could maybe explain that a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, objective is just a marker or a unit of measurement, and subjective is like, how do you feel? Now, a good example of this is how, like, I show you, and this is why it's important to collect all forms of data and compare them and analyze them. There was peppermint trials. Remember the peppermint essential oil? I made a product once called AMP. I dosed that up to have 50 millimoles per liter worth of menthol from peppermint, because that was used in a study where they did that exact dose, and they found an improve of 10% increase, jump 30% increase in grip strength. Lots of freaky pre-workout effects from just peppermint at that particular dose of menthol. Part of that study, they did a endurance aspect of it as well. And anyway, so when they come back and they ask the people, how did you feel? Did you like it? They all said, I hated it. It was terrible. I performed slow. I just felt I could never get to my straps. And then when they analyzed the data, they were all faster. So they actually did a better time. So objectively, positive data, objectively significant improvement, statistically significant improvement in their times. Subjectively, all these people said they hated it and they felt worse, felt slower. So when they analyzed the data, they realized that these people had perceived less exertion. So they felt that they never hit their straps. They never really went fast enough. They didn't feel like they were going fast because they were doing it easier. And so the fact that they were doing easier and they did faster times, but they perceived it subjectively as though they didn't like it. But then when they told them the results and showed them that they were faster, they go, oh, I like it. That was actually, maybe it was just felt easier. And now to hit my same threshold and maybe go faster again, you know? So like, that's what I talk about with these different types of data. You got to collect it. The Red Bull study, man. Did you ever see that famous market research that came out of Red Bull? I got to find this letter. I can't find it though. It's bugging me. So the Red Bull people, they went out and did one of those market research where they hired a company to just taste their product and trial their product. They just went through and did their marketing campaign. And this is before Red Bull went to market. Yep. That market research company came back with big data saying, look, we got a big group, 100 people that we got in. They all hate it, basically. I think it's a stupid idea. Why would anyone want wings? Why would anyone want some jittery, caffeinated, high-stimulated drink? It tastes absolutely horrible. It's a terrible taste. It looks stupid. Basically, they slaughtered it in this market research. The people went back and said, oh, we really like it. We're going to do it anyway. Thanks for that. But they used that letter as a marketing campaign through the years to show, look, man, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was a great example of when you ask the wrong people, you know, wrong. Now, to think of, they might have actually said, oh, shit, geez, we paid, you know, top dollar for that trial. This was a top level market research company. The public generally thinks it sucks. You know, we need to take this data to go get investment somewhere and show people that it's a good idea, but this data says it sucks, you know, like maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe imagine if they actually believed those people and didn't believe their heart and their beliefs and they just didn't do it. Then Red Bull would never have existed because of a particular group of people that said they don't like it. You know?
Man, that'd mean like no Red Bull Cape Fear. That's my favorite surfing event ever. Have you seen that?
No. I've got to get it. Hang on, is that the big wave one? That big crazy one?
Yeah, so they just have it at Psycho Waves on the biggest swells of the year, and there was one with Mark Matthews
and all. Yeah.
There's a really good doco of that one down at Sydney there. That was a just freaky day where Russell Björk won it.
Yeah. Oh, and my mate, I got another dude I met over in Lake Tahoe. The Fear Guru. Look up his books and look up his stuff. He's cool, man. Really cool guy. He witnessed a plane crash or something when he was a kid. Like it messed him up. Like found like they were the first people there on their farm or something. Like it was like fully screwed the guy, and he ended up with a fear of flying, as you can imagine, or fear of crashing. And then so anyway. So then what happened is he fear of heights and everything. So then he decided he's going to overcome these fears. He's now a Red Bull pilot doing those obstacle things. And so like how cool to go from someone that was too scared to walk upstairs to now like doing that sort of crap.
Red Bull got
and
wings.
what he and what he got, man, and he fully he's just flipped the whole thing because he says the joy and the feeling you get from overcoming a fear is like the most ultimate feeling you'll ever have in your whole life. And he now feels sorry for people that don't have fears. Because if you're not scared of something, you'll never feel the joy of overcoming that fear. And so now he keeps trying to find more things he's scared of so that he can try to do it and then overcome it so he can get a buzz.
Such a cool concept, man. Like I've heard it off of one of my mentors that I do like some mental toughness training and whatnot. And he's saying in that training, he's literally just saying, if you don't have things that are challenging you throughout your life, you're literally not growing. And it's a recipe to have yourself in a position where you just feel stagnant. And that brings on depression over time if you don't have things that you're pushing your limits with. And, you know, I feel that big time. If I don't have something that I'm working towards or striving towards, just like oh man, what am I doing?
Yeah. Oh man, I honestly can't remember the last time I was bored. Like I would
Yeah.
love to be bored now. Like I
Yeah.
can't. There's just so much. Hey, there's so much to do and so much, like, just
So many cool
rattling
things.
around and so many questions. You know, like it's just can't remember ever being bored anymore. Like I remember it as a kid or something, you know, like complaining of being bored. And was our
Yeah.
family, what our mum, my sister, and that always used to say, "There's no such thing as boring, only boring people." I'm not bored then. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I don't know what we're talking about anymore, Ty. You go off on these weird tangents talking
I
about your
know.
childhood bullshit.
Bloody oath, bloody oath. Well, should we wrap it up here then? Because we've given everyone a bit of an update here. So we've got the first trial underway, and then we're going to be sending out the new formula of protein in the coming week or two, I'm assuming, and then get some feedback, and then we're going to share that with you guys. Bit of an update on the back end, as a lot of you would have noticed. There's been some changes to our branding due to some amazing hand-drawn pictures by the man himself.
Don't say that.
And then,
Daryl did an amazing job with these, with the pillars and the things.
So cool. So yeah, with some stuff coming up, we've got a website now as well. Then we've got the podcast as well, and then I'm frothing with some of these trials coming up too, eh?
Yeah. Yep. Fired up.
Cool.
I can't wait. I'll let you know more as I can. I just can't let the cat out of the bag too soon because these. Oh man, there's so much happening. But you'll be excited. Just hang around.
Yeah. I'll try and pull them out of you each time we do a stream.
We'll get something. We'll get some more surprise guests soon. We'll get some surprise guests soon, and you'll see. You get a bit of a hint.
Hell yeah.
I'll probably tell you, not a hint. All right, Haru. Don't steal my Haru. See ya.